Hi everybody, today we're going to do an overview of Point Blank Winter Victory, which is the expansion to the original Point Blank game, which, if you recall, was one of my top war games of 2022. This expansion adds new units, snow, a new tile-based map, some rules covering things like airstrikes, and a bunch of other features to the game. Let's jump in and take a look. Here is Point Blank Winter Victory spread out in front of us. An important point before we jump in order to play with the components in Point Blank Winter Victory, you need the base game Point Blank V is for Victory. If you're not familiar with the gameplay of this system, there's an overview video on the channel that shows all of the components and elements of gameplay in V is for Victory. I'll put a link to that video in the top right corner as well as in the description down below. And if you'd like to see how this system plays, we have a complete playthrough on the channel of a Point Blank V is for Victory mini scenario. I'll put a link in the top right corner here, as well as a link down in the description to that video. Let's do a super brief overview of the gameplay and then talk about what's new and added in this system. So as with the base game, this is designed by Sean Druelinger and published by Lock and Load Publishing. It's a 1 to 2 player system. There is an entire solo bot available in the Point Blank V is for Victory, and that solo bot will work for Winter Victory as well. Gameplay length is listed as 1 to 2 hours, but you can make bigger scenarios that will certainly last a lot longer than that. And the historical length of a scenario is less than an hour, as a turn length is, well, maybe about an hour. The turn length is 5 to 15 minutes. Unit scale is squads and individual vehicles, as we shall see as we look at some of the components. But what's been added now with Point Blank Winter Victory? Well, this can really be divided up into 3 things. You can see in front of us here this tile-based map system that's new to the system, and this can be used, of course, retrofitted to the V is for Victory gameplay. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment. Then we have a number of new mechanics in Point Blank Winter Victory. We have heavy snow, airstrikes, hidden units, pre-registered artillery fire are 4 of the big ones. And we also have new goodies to play with. New ordnance, things like the Tiger II tank, M4A3 tank. There are new terrain types, and there are some different objective cards. Lastly, we get a bunch of scenarios added to the game as well. Let's take a look at our documentation. Point Blank Winter Victory comes with a 60+ page documentation manual here, and we've got to look at this. Gives you an overview of what's new and what's replacing things from V is for Victory. Then we jump into some of the mechanics. So we've got foxholes, which are the new terrain modifiers, prepared positions, pre-registered artillery, and so it kind of walks through these airstrikes. We'll take a look at some of these cards as we go forward. Of course, airstrikes brings into play anti-aircraft, hidden units. So a number of new different types of elements in here. We've got some new terrain. We'll take a look at that shortly. Then quickly though, as we morph into the middle portion of the rule book here, with the scenario book, we shift over into the scenarios. And there are 12 of them in all, a lot of different sizes. Most of them, if not all of them, seem to center on the Battle of the Bulge, which would make sense because we're adding in some heavy snow rules. This, of course, is a larger one here. And then we've got a much smaller one. So just a number of different sizes and shapes for scenarios. These are always really fun. It's great to see the Battle of the Bulge make it into the Winter Victory setup here. So that's basically the main thrust here behind the 60 pages. And again, 40 of the 60 pages really are outlining the 12 new scenarios that are added to the game. There are 64 of these full-size cards that are new to the expansion. And again, one thing to keep in mind is you have a bazillion units in the V is for Victory core game. So I think they're close to 600 cards in the core game. So it's not like you're lacking units at any point here, but there are 4 new ones added to Winter Victory. We get the massive Tiger II here, the US M4A3. We got a half-track that has anti-aircraft fire capacity for the Germans, and then another scout vehicle here. So 4 new units that are included in this one. Winter Victory also comes with what are called replacement unit cards. So these are cards, and there are multiples of these, just as there are multiple Tiger II. So there's not just one, there's a bunch of each one of these. These replace the vehicles, their respective vehicles within the V is for Victory core game system. And I'm not quite sure why or what's different about these, but these are just updated units for your core system. The V is for Victory core game has a ton of different terrain types, but Winter Victory adds 4 new ones here. We've got a clearing objective, we've got rubble and broken ground, as well as forest. Now, heavy snow is a rule mechanic that overlays all of these different cards. So there aren't cards for heavy snow in here. That would just be a rule modification that would impact all of the different terrain types. Winter Victory also adds airstrikes. We get Thunderbolt and the Typhoon for the Americans and Commonwealth respectively, and then the Focke-Wulf 190 for the German forces. In addition to these 64 full-size cards that come with the expansion, there's also 30 of these mini game support cards. Now, Panzerfaust 30s and MG42s were in the core game. It just gives you more of them to play with in this expansion. And then we have two new terrain modifier types, foxholes and prepared positions, that can be added onto existing terrain to modify that terrain. Should also mention that we have ambushes here. I talked about hidden units, so ambushes are a part of gameplay as well. Winter Victory comes with one player aid. That's basically the charts for all of the new mechanics in the game. So airstrikes, hidden units, heavy snow, prepared positions, anti-aircraft, foxholes, and more airstrike information over here on the right side. The back side is the terrain explanation for the new 4 terrain types that are in the game as well. I think the biggest addition that the Winter Victory expansion brings to the point blank system is the new map tile system. Now, what we're looking at here is the old map tile system. These were the kind of the paper mats here, and it was basically 5 zones by 9 zones, and you'd lay this out. Now, the thing is, though, so this is a big footprint. The thing is, too, a lot of the scenarios in point blank are much smaller. You're not using this 9 by 45 map. So, you'd kind of end up folding over some of these sides, but it wasn't quite elegant, and the footprint of the game was just a lot bigger than it had to be. So with Point Blank Winter Victory, we now have a new system, and this new system is this tile-based system. So these are thick cards, and now I've got basically, what is this, 8 times, I've got 24 of them here, but there are 45, so you can create a play area that's as big as the original game. So if we look in here, we've got a whole number of extra tiles in here that we can add. But these are nice and sturdy, and the nice thing now is that the footprint of your scenario is the footprint of your scenario. It's not going to be a lot bigger. These are also pretty cool too because they're double-sided, so you can get kind of a different flair to them here. So I would probably use this side here for the snow scenarios, which has got a little bit more of a snowy feel to it. So yeah, this is just a really neat expansion and just a much better way to, I think, set up the game and play the game. It's nice to have this modular footprint for the game. And so you know exactly how big the areas are. It's really nice too for some of the smaller scenarios. And that's one of the things I liked about the game too, is you can throw together really quick scenarios and just have a little quick firefight pretty quickly as you're playing the game. So there you have it, Winter Victory, the new addition to the V is for Victory tactical combat system from Lock and Load Publishing. I think this is a fine addition, adds a lot of really neat features. I like the airstrikes and some of the new mechanics, and this tile mat here is just, it fits the system so much better for its kind of the modularity and the kind of your ability to really create your own scenarios and do what you want with it. So it's really, I think it blends into that system really well. If you are curious to see gameplay, I mentioned this earlier, but here is a link to episode 1 in our full playthrough of a scenario with V is for Victory. If you're interested in the system, that might help give you an idea of what gameplay is like.